Jim, a new government report came out this week examining how foreign spies are stealing U.S. economic secrets. What did the report find, and how significant is it in the cyber world?
It's a breakthrough report because it came out and said what people have known on a classified level for several years, and that is that Russia and China are our most vigorous opponents in cyberspace and exploit the vulnerabilities of networks to get real economic, strategic, and military advantage.
Do we really have our arms wrapped around what nation-state cyber threats are and what they mean for the United States of America?
I think we do, and the experience of really the last 5 or 6 years has helped focus attention, because you can identify national programs, you can identify national activities. One of the things that people forget is that the intelligence community might have better insight into what foreign opponents are doing than what's publicly available. So I think we have a pretty good idea of what's going on.
How much damage do these attacks do to our economy?
The damage is substantial, and it's difficult to put a dollar figure on it because very often we don't know what's been taken. But if you were going to look for some classic examples, last week in the newspaper there was a report in the Times that said it was surprising how quickly China had developed new supercomputer capabilities. It's surprising how quickly China has upgraded its submarine capabilities. It's surprising how quickly China created an alleged stealth fighter.
Aircraft carrier in the South China Sea.
When you see that many surprises in a row, and when they correlate with incidents where we know Chinese espionage has occurred, you have to think there's a pattern. So this is the biggest threat to the American economy that we'll face over the next 5 or 10 years.
What's the threat to our national security?
The Chinese are likely, if we misplay things, to become our competitor. And so when you look at the PLA's intentions, when you look at their efforts to upgrade their capabilities, this is where you see military damage. The best example, and it doesn't involve China.
PLA, People's Liberation Army.
The best example was the December 2008 penetration of Central Command's classified computer networks. And an opponent was able to get onto that network, and we were unable to remove them. And had it been a war with that opponent, they would have been able to erase data, disrupt data, to cause havoc. And it's quite possible it would have been a decisive military event, decisive in the sense that we would have lost. So this is really a big problem militarily.
And what are we doing to talk to the Chinese about this? We know about it, they know we know about it. What are we doing to try to mitigate these issues?
We have track 1 discussions with the Russians. They're going relatively well. We have track 2 discussions with the Chinese that are also going relatively well. And of course, at the last strategic and economic dialogue, the Chinese put cybersecurity on the agenda. They wanted to talk about it. So it's been broached at senior levels. There's ongoing dialogue with both countries. One thing I've noticed in the work I've done with other countries is everyone is afraid of this. They're afraid it will escalate out of control into some really damaging conflict. So there's a strong desire in all nations to get the cyber thing within the bounds of normal international security. For the Chinese, there's a conflict, of course. They like economic espionage. They're worried about potential escalation. And they're going to have to make some decisions about how they manage moving away from one and closer to another.
What can the U.S. private sector do to help U.S. government deter, detect, counter these threats?
Not a lot. This is national security. This is public safety. These are government functions. There's not a lot the private sector can do.
Not on intellectual property, not on...
You know, there's a point up to which, and the financial system is a good example. The big banks have done as much as they possibly can to secure their networks, and yet Russian cyber criminals really don't have that much trouble getting through. Maybe it's gone from taking them a few hours to a few days, but there's a limit to what the private sector can do. Just as there is in any other national security problem, we don't ask the airlines to defend our airspace, and we shouldn't ask the private companies to defend our cyberspace.
Jim Lewis, this is a fascinating discussion and one I know that will continue. Thank you for your time.
Thanks very much.